This is the Ring of Honor, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy.
This is Mr. Anderson.
This is good old JR Jim Ross, and you are listening.
You're listening to Knockouts and 3 Counts.
Cover! We got a new world champion!
That might be one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Knockouts and 3 Counts is the podcast leading to the real deal, baby!
Knockouts and 3 Counts starts now.
Ooh, what up, though? It is another Tuesday. That means this is Knockouts and 3 Counts, and I've survived another day at the post office without going postal, even though I really wanted to. But it is another Tuesday. This is Knockouts and 3 Counts, and as I told you, if you're following us at those social medias, we've got a very special guest today. We've got the presidente of Mr. Chainsaw, Pro Wrestling himself, Mikey Zeroe. How you doing, brother, man?
Doing pretty good. How you guys doing?
Not too bad. What up, though, Donald?
Doing damn well. Just got back from a big family get-together for my dad's birthday and ate a bunch of weird seafood tacos. So
Yeah.
if you see me over here rubbing my belly at any point, it's because it's turning a little bit over here on me. But it was delicious, man.
Nice.
So, in other words, I have no business eating anything that you guys had over there because that just sounds like a long way.
To name off a couple of them, I had 5 of the individual tacos. I had 2 of the lobster ones. I had 2.
Hey, yo.
Or 1 of the steak tacos. 1 of the citrus spicy scallop tacos. That one was honestly the best one of them all, as weird as it sounds. And what was the other one? I can't even think of it at the moment. But every single one of them was delicious. This spot out in Trenton for anybody who may
Making
be
me
interested.
jealous.
Hey, man, I'm just saying, that all sounds good, but we've talked about before here on the show, I got Crohn's disease, homie. You don't stray too far from the things that you know are going to keep you safe. Otherwise, you might get more than you bargained for. Now, on the other hand, my dumbass, if I could learn that with ice cream, we would be all right. Because every once in a while, I don't do it very often, but boy, every once in a while, I got to have some of that ice cream. And it doesn't fucking help that the Red Barn is within, 5-minute driving distance from me.
Yeah, that's
so,
classic.
It kind of sucks. But, we talk about ice cream bars and all that shit. You need to hit the Red Barn if you're out this way. But that's not what we're here to talk about. What we are here to talk about is Mr. Chainsaw Pro Wrestling. Tell me, first of all, man, how long have you guys been going? How did it come to be? How did you get involved? Because, man, from what I've seen, you guys, I've heard a lot of good things about you guys. Donald says repeatedly in the comments that he thinks you guys are the best promotion inside Michigan. And, hey, I got to trust the man's opinion to some degree because he's around the local shows even more than I'm able to be. So give me a little bit of a background to how you fit in and what happened with Mr. Chainsaw.
I started out in the wrestling business off of a job shadow freshman year. I was 14, and I had met my trainer through that. By the time I was 15, I was getting trained, traveling around. And by the time I was 17, that's when I decided, I want to start something up. And that was 15 years ago now. And we just started very small, kind of with hardcore shows mixed in, hardcore music shows.
Okay.
And so it was 2 matches and then a bunch of hardcore bands. And we just kind of built off that and started doing wrestling just by itself. And it grew and grew. It's had its ups and downs. But over the last 5 years, I think, we've been taking it super serious. And it's been growing huge with IWTV. And it's nice to see 15 years worth of hard work start to pay off.
Yeah,
that's go ahead.
That's it's a crazy buildup to say that you had started at such a young age and already kind of have a vision of wanting to start it so young. That's kind of crazy, honestly.
No, yeah, I've always wanted, I've always loved wrestling. I wanted to be involved in wrestling, and that's with the job shadow I did. I told my teacher, I'm not doing any job shadow unless it has to do with wrestling. And she ended up finding me a promoter maybe an hour and a half from where I live. And she's like, here you go. And I didn't even know indie wrestling was a thing when I just thought it was like the major companies on TV at the time. So it's crazy. Yeah. Made it all these years.
That's dope. So that's dope because I actually did job shadowing a little bit when I was in high school. So as we talked about when we were doing the setup to try to put this all together, I worked with kids with disabilities for quite a while. But before that, and obviously now with what we're doing with the show, broadcasting was something I always wanted to do. Like I got to do job shadowing, but it was at Channel 7, right? So I had to go in there and I saw how they got all their stories and then how they do the weather and how you do like all this stuff. So I totally can respect that to a degree with that, because it's like you have your eyes set on doing something. Like for me, like with those job shadows, like I mean, it was the same with like Vogue Tech, right? Like it was cool to take that stuff, but I mean, if I'm being honest, I already knew, other than like having to have a job to pay your bills. Like if I was going to do something, I wanted to do something in the communication sphere of things. It's funny how that shit works, because it's like when you're in school, they'll try to tell you, well, why don't you just go try this welder one or go over here to where you learn to be a cook or whatever. It's like, fam, I knew what I wanted to go to as soon as that shit was on the fucking list. If any of you guys have ever done any of those job shadowing or Vogue, Donald, all of you guys who are watching, let me know in the comments. Cody, you went to the same school as me, so I'm sure you got roped into that shit too. But about with Mr. Chainsaw though, like what do you think at this point, since you said you guys have been going around for so long at this point, what is it you think that kind of like sets you guys apart from all the other different promotions that you got in Michigan? I have my thoughts after watching the show, so I'll answer in a little bit, but I'd love to know what you think it is for those who are maybe new to Mr. Chainsaw. Like, what is it that makes you guys different from everybody else?
I think our crowd is like one of the coolest things, because like I said, when I started 15 years ago, we kind of have this like hardcore metal kid type crowd, and then it transitioned into like old school fans. There's kids there, there's adults. I mean, they really believe. And since we got IWTV and we've been bringing up some different names and big indie names, like that, now we're getting kind of that smart crowd, as people say, but they're all still merged and mixed together. So like, it's just a contrasting crowd, which is super cool. And I feel like a lot of the times you don't get that. A lot of times you just get like that smart crowd, or, maybe just that deathmatch crowd, or they just want to see one thing. I think that's the biggest thing for sure. Also, being so far away from anyone else in Michigan, really just we're kind of on our own island. I know there's a lot of people, they'll talk bad about Detroit, or they'll say things happen in Detroit and, you don't come to Michigan to wrestle and da-da-da-da. But like, I feel like I'm up here on my own island. Like, I don't even feel like Michigan. I'm up in the North Woods. So I think that's another thing. And then of course, just, we just try to have something for everybody. As cliche as that sounds, like, well, we'll do a couple death matches here and there per year. We'll have some high flying guys, some lucha guys. We'll do some comedy stuff, like a little bit of everything for the kids in the crowd, to those fans that still believe, to the smart crowd, to the deathmatch crowd. But that's kind of how we separate ourselves, I think, from everybody. The key factors there. And then, of course, we try to, keep it real with IWTV and just branch out everywhere we can. I mean, we have people watching our shows over in England and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool to have this small Michigan town, what I've worked so hard for 15 years to bring, being seen all over the world now.
Yeah, that's such an interesting aspect of it, to really like incorporate, because to your point, that's part of the reason. I mean, Kyle can attest to this as well. That's a trip for most of us down here, but there's tons of people that are willing to make that trip because of the content that you guys are providing. And then, like you say, you guys really are kind of on your own secluded island, you could say, because no one else is really providing that type of entertainment up there. So
exactly. And shout out to Donald Holland and the Holland family, because they make the drive from Detroit pretty much every single show. So it's just, it's wild to see, people care that much about what we're putting out to make a weekend out of it. Like, I never would have thought that 15 years ago.
That does got to be a dope feeling. We have nothing but good things to say about D Holland over here, because he's watching us every week, faithfully, always sharing the stuff out, always hyping us up to everybody else. So shout out to Donald for sure. I've got nothing but good things to say about Donald. Well, talking about having that different vibe and stuff, it brings another question. I wonder. So for you, you said you knew you wanted to be a promoter from, when you were young. What were some of the promotions that you liked that you were like, okay, well, I like the style of like maybe an ECW or, whatever it was, WCW, WWE. What were some of the promotions that you liked the vibe of that maybe you patterned some of MCPW after?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I was watching with my dad like in the early '90s. That's my earliest memories. So, the Hulk Hogan's and the Macho Man's. But then, like in the mid '90s, when I started to get a little bit older, and they started kind of forming into the Attitude Era, I really liked that. Of course, being a kid on the playground, like 10 years old, running around telling people to suck it. Like I thought that was so cool and edgy. The NWO was huge to me. Like. Just the outsiders and stuff like that. It's when wrestling was just like, wow, this is becoming, you have these superheroes, but it's like now there's these like bad guys and they're really cool. So that was a huge influence, Attitude Era, the NWO, but ECW, I actually had to like sneak that and hide that from my parents because we had satellite.
I remember.
And like I had like a converter in my room that could get the channels that we got in the living room, but that's it. So like after my parents would go to bed or whatever, I'd put on TNN and then I would flip it into my room and then I keep it real quiet and I would watch that. Or I would get like the VHS tapes when they would have like the goriest matches or whatever, ECW. And that was just like, all right, this is.
You remember when it used to be on WADL and shit? You had to like try to catch it at like midnight and and shit like that because that was the only place you could watch it.
Yeah, it was the hardest one to find, obviously, but but when you found it, it was great, life-changing stuff. So those definitely inspired me. And then when I found out about the indies, when I was job shadowing, one of the first companies that I had heard about, other than the ones around in Michigan, was IWA Mid-South, and I used to go to Smart Mark Video, their website, when they would have VHS tapes. Like that's all they had was like 2003. So I remember getting like April Blood Showers 2003 and then the infamous King of the Death Match 2003 on VHS. And like, I was like, this is crazy. Cause it even like upped ECW, they're doing light tubes and stuff like that. And so that kind of stuff just really shaped like what I wanted originally. And that kind of fit the vibe with like the hardcore bands and the metal shows and stuff.
Totally makes sense, man. But I asked that question because, like I say, I feel like a lot of times when you talk to somebody when they're in the promoting end of things, if you ask somebody, like what were some of the scenes that you really enjoyed the vibe of, you usually can see footprints of that in the style of what you see in people's shows and things like that. Like for me, I started watching when I was 6, which was right in the middle of the Attitude Era. So I grew up right on Stone Cold and all that stuff. So Stone Cold will, for me, probably always be my all-time favorite. But I then went, as I got older, and went back and watched the stuff from the 80s and the early 90s and the world class and all that kind of stuff. So I've seen a lot of it now, but for me, like you were saying, for me, that was kind of like right in the thick of when I grew up watching wrestling. So
yeah,
it's, I think, and that's the thing. I feel like that, at least for me, that's why I always have been more of a fan of, if you think back to like the Attitude Era and stuff like that, you had like stories that went for like a long time. You know what I mean? You had, everybody was kind of doing something back then. So that's why now I'm more invested in things that they can make last longer and make me want to see what the hell is gonna happen with that stuff. And then of course, as we talked about, our show covers MMA and all those things as well. That's, that tells you where the other half of the show comes from. But it's just funny how that stuff like just shapes the way you're doing stuff.
Yeah, and like, one of the things too is like I always tell everybody, like I grew up also in like the Jackass era. So like when I was in high school, middle school, high school, Jackass was huge. On TV, they're getting movies, Viva La Bam, and like I grew up around a bunch of kids that skateboard. I could never do it myself. I tried, but I never could. And
me either.
Like the backyard wrestling stuff. So that whole vibe too, I kind of twisted into, what I wanted to do with the promotion. So it's, ECW, the Attitude Era, the NWO, Jackass, like all mixed in. And that's why I like, hardcore stuff. I like deathmatch stuff, but I also like a guy we just did Jason Hotch versus Trey Miguel versus Marco Stunt, and there was a
That's
little bit
a
of
hell of a
comedy to
match.
start it out, and it was just like just high flying crazy stuff as well, which is like jackass type stunts. So it's really just stuff I like that all just rolled into one.
I can totally respect that, man, because that's the thing. I feel like, and that's the cool thing with wrestling is I feel like your taste as you get older, or whatever it is, like it'll change over time, right? Like you could be,
for sure,
you could be the guy who, as a kid, you like the big superhero type guys like Hulk Hogan and all that stuff, and then as you get older, you got, like you said, DX and the NWO. Then you got, like for me now, I've always liked, I'm a lot bigger fan of the people who can grapple real well, like incorporating jiu-jitsu and MMA and all those things into it. So it's crazy how your taste changes in life. And speaking of taste and all those things with wrestling, man, I watched the last show, and you had some beef with a guy who's got quite the interesting taste in clothes, man. I saw you and Brutus Atwell were kind of had some beef over there, man. So for those who are maybe new to Mr. Chainsaw and don't know what's going on, give me a little bit of background into what's going on with you and the Swamp Daddy, Brutus Atwell.
Well, before we go any further, please refer to him as the Swamp Bitch. That's what I call him now. He is the Swamp Bitch. So being a promoter for 15 years, I'm always keeping my eye on, who's coming up and these young guys and girls out there wrestling. And a lot of people were talking about, there's these three kids, Solo and Kyler Coleman and Brutus Atwell. And I heard their names over and over and over again. And every time Brutus Atwell was mentioned, it was, he's like Mikey Zeroe 10 years ago. He had kind of a similar look, a similar style, similar build. And eventually the three of them started coming up and doing shows together. And they've been up here since last July, I think was the first time. And the first show this year in January, after my match, Brutus came out and he slammed me through a steel chair. And then it was on. Like, that was instant. I don't know if he didn't like that, the comparison between him and I or whatever. Talked a bunch of trash, called me washed up, said I'm a shell of the man I used to be, So he wants to fight me. He wants a match with me, and I'm telling him he needs to earn it. He's not just going to come in and attack me. I've been doing this for 15 years. Like, I've seen guys like him come and go and try to make names for themselves, and he's winning championships now. And he's like some King of the Ring type deal now. Just won a championship down at IPW. And he won Rookie of the Year award. And like, I think it's getting to his head a little bit, the ego, the Swamp Bitch is getting an ego. And he wants to come attack me and he wants a match with me. I'm like, all right, well, prove yourself. So I'm going to give him a huge test. At Battleground May 21st, it's going to be him and the former Eri Redbeard. So let's see if he can really slam every man. That dude's like 6'8". That'll be fun to watch.
That's a big sumbitch, dude. I've seen him live multiple times, and from what we've seen since he's come back out to the Indies after them being released from WWE, I don't know, man. That's gonna be a pretty tall order. So let's say that Brutus continues to pass these tests that you got for him, and you guys end up having your match. How do you see that going? Do you think your experience ends up waging it out for you, or how are you feeling about it should you guys end up stepping in the ring?
That's what I think. I think the experience, I've been doing this, like I said, 15 years. And I mean, he's just over a year in. And yeah, he's great. He's really good. He's tough. He's doing death matches and stuff now. But like, I've seen guys like that before. There's been guys that I've been compared to before, or have been compared to me. And, they've come to shoot their shot. And sometimes you got to knock them back down. And that's the thing, is he's getting all these accolades, these championships, and I do think it's going to get to his head, because eventually you're going to have to come crashing down. That's just how wrestling works. You're not going to stay on top forever, and I think he's, grown so much and moved so fast that when he steps in there with me, eventually, that he better really come with a clear mind and ready to prove himself and ready to fight. I think it's going to be an all-out brawl. So
I like it. Them's fighting words, but I like it. I'm
down. I'm down for it.
I'm ready to see how this Eri Redbeard match plays out, number one, because that's going to be a hell of a test for him. But if he does make it through it, I don't know, man. I definitely want to see what happens with you and, as you coined him, the swamp bitch, Brutus Atwell. So we're gonna have to see how that plays out. But
For sure.
That brings me to another question I got. Like, knowing that you do some stuff with radio and stuff, how does that help you with the promotion side of things for Mr. Chainsaw?
I mean, it helps out definitely. It helps out a lot. Like we've had some of the wrestlers on the radio. They'll call in. We do ticket giveaways and stuff like that on the radio. We have people that come to the shows and then like they'll call in the Monday after and like talk about it. And sometimes my boss, I think he like kind of shied away from it a little bit. Like, we don't want to get too involved in wrestling. But then when he realized like listeners are now coming and they're interacting with the radio show because of wrestling, that he's down with that. So that's been really cool. If I could, I would talk about wrestling from the time I cracked the mic every single morning until the time I had to leave that building. But obviously the boss won't let me do that. But it helps out. It helps out a lot. I enjoy being able to have that freedom to talk wrestling at least a little bit.
That's cool. Now, excuse me for, I guess, being ill-informed, but being that I was out to dinner, I didn't get to do as much normal research as I would. What's the radio program that you run?
It's a morning show on 104.5 Bob FM, Mikey in the Morning. I'm the host of it. I have a wacky intern who actually you'll see at the shows. Like he helps out a little bit. His name's Brendan. Yeah, he's done a little bit of stuff with Effie. We brought Effie up here, and he got shirtless and did a little dance for Effie in the ring before. He's done like bikini contests for raising money for breast cancer, like snowmobiling in a bikini up here in northern Michigan. Not a fun thing, but he flaunted his bikini at a show to help raise funds for it. And he's just as wacky at the wrestling shows as he is on the radio. So, but yeah,
that's funny. It's funny you met. My bad.
Oh no, I was just gonna say 104.5 Bob FM. We have an app. If you want to listen, you can download it for free.
Okay.
Cheap plug.
Hell yeah, man! Plug away. Which, while we're plugging things, like I said, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you guys are new here. You never know what we got coming through. And speaking of plugging things, shout out to our sponsors, G3 Payroll and Tax. If you guys haven't gotten your taxes done, being that I work at the post office and I know how many of you people are mailing out taxes and shit still. If you guys need to get your taxes done, you need to hit up our homies Jack and the team over there at G3. They just did my taxes. Definitely did a good job for me. He'll do a good job for you. The link is in the description. Tell him Knockouts and 3 Counts sent you. But now that we've got all that out of the way, speaking of, futures and things like that for Mr. Chainsaw, if you could bring anybody to Mr. Chainsaw, who would it be and why?
Wow. Anybody?
Yep. Anybody you want.
If I could bring in anybody, I think, I just think the coolest person to have, even if it was just for a 5-minute segment, would be Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like,
I mean, you're not wrong.
Just to have like that beer bash in northern Michigan, that in my ring, like that would be the coolest thing. We've had Foley up here before. Seth Rollins is our former champion. He's been up here a bunch before. It'd be kind of cool, to have him back eventually, down the line, even if, like I said, a 5-minute appearance. But I think those are reaching for the stars type of names. I also really wouldn't mind any of the Jackass guys. Like I know they just got involved with WrestleMania. But I was actually working on a deal with Bam Margera where I got some FaceTime with him one-on-one, and I was going to bring him up here for a wrestling show. And then
that would have been interesting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the meeting was very interesting. Like he was pitching ideas and stuff, and it was almost about to happen, and then he kind of, went off the rails a little bit and needed some help, so it didn't happen. But I mean, just I like having like outsiders or people to draw attention to wrestling as well. But again, these are all just shooting for stars type of people. Maybe Tony Hawk. I think he'd be a fun one too.
Well, Donald's got a question for you in the comments off that.
Oh,
he wants to know, who would you like out of the indie guys? Is there anybody in particular in the indies right now that you'd like to see make their way to Mr. Chainsaw?
Well, I mean, right now, who's on an indie run? I would like Minoru Suzuki would be a really cool one to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's doing some indies right now. We have eventually Speedball Mike Bailey would be really cool.
Big fan of that guy.
Oh yeah, just some of the stuff he does, and we have some. I like Speedball Mike Bailey and Jason Hotch would be amazing. Like that would be a match I would book right now. Other than that, like I think I've worked with a lot of names and brought in a lot of names from the indies. Nick Gage, we brought him up here once. I actually wrestled a match against Nick Gage, which was like a bucket list thing, and I would really like to bring him back. I mean, there are a lot of people, but a lot of the ones that I have on my list, I was able to check off. So
That's dope, though. Now, question: since you got in the ring with Gage, man, how the fuck do you motherfuckers let people get you with the light tubes like that, dude? I mean, that's got to take a certain level of nuts, dude, to be
for sure.
getting smoked with these fucking tubes, man. I've told this story a few times on the show, but I'll never forget it. This is why, and even though that I've fought, I got no business with a damn light tube. I'll never forget it. I was laid up. Do you remember when JCW used to do the shows at the Modern Exchange?
I heard about them, but I've never.
So I was there my senior year of high school and was in a cast and had my leg laid up on, and they had this couch in the very back of there. So I had my leg laid up because I had just had surgery. And it was Necro Butcher versus, I forgot who the hell he was fighting, but the guy's coming back, and I'm like, oh shit, he's about to smoke him with that tube. And obviously, I was a little immobile at the time, and it wasn't like there was a whole lot of room for me to move or run. So I was like, well, shit, best option in this one is I'm gonna just cover the fuck up real quick.
Yeah.
And ever
Good
since
call.
then, I was like, man, fuck that. I do not got any business with a dude smoking me with a light tube. Because I feel like if I got hit with a light tube, dude, I'd had to kill somebody, dude. Fuck that. You guys can have all.
my best advice is just close your eyes. Close your eyes, number one, and don't be afraid of blood. Luckily though, in the match with Gage, like glass wasn't allowed in the building. I say luckily just because it was Nick Gage. But like he did his boot scrape in the corner to a barbed wire board that was right in my face, and he does not pull back. That's the thing, is he gave it to me and it just sliced my face right up, and I was like, okay, like he's not playing around. So, but it was still once the adrenaline wears off, you look at it and you're like, okay, but no, that was super cool. That was a bucket list thing.
You talk about being a promotion that sets up these death matches and stuff. Where do you draw inspiration for some of this stuff? Because it's like it constantly seems to be like an ever-present thing of just trying to top the past death match with the next big, whether it be scaffolding or more glass or more bats with barbed wire. It's like they always find a way to top themselves, working their way up the ladder.
Yeah, it's just it's kind of a matter of just finding new stuff, like new weapons. Or luckily up here, like we don't do death matches every single show, but the ones we do, like our crowd doesn't see them all the time, so it's almost like a treat. So the more they like get bigger and better, and we put more glass in there, like our crowd just reacts like crazy. And that you just see new stuff too. Like I know ICW and RPW, they were using like those baseball bats with like those big red popper snapper firecracker type things. Like I've never seen those used before, so I think those would be fun to bring up to MCPW. Or going back to like watching like 2003 IWA Mid-South, like I was talking about earlier, our CZW Tournaments Death. There's weapons that they used back in the day that they don't use anymore now, and finding stuff like that. Like we did like a board of mouse traps. Like we did like a full-on board just filled with set mouse traps, which I haven't seen done in a while. I mean, other than WrestleMania's giant mouse trap, but
that was something else to see live. Let me tell you.
Right there.
I swear, dude, I was sitting there like, what the fuck is that? When they pulled it out at first, and then when I realized, I'm like, damn, Sami Zayn's gonna get caught in this bitch.
that was one of my favorite matches that weekend.
Well, that's what I was going to actually ask you. You brought up the fact that you're, in the Jackass era. So were we growing up. We even tried to film, me and Kyle being childhood friends. We filmed way too much dumb shit trying to make ourselves the next Jackass.
Fuck that wheelchair is all I'm going to say is fuck that wheelchair.
My tailbone still fucking hurts.
Yeah, you and me both, sir. You and me both. Except my stupid ass went and thought, let's be smart and go fight and do jiu-jitsu where people are just going to try to break my fucking limbs off. Go ahead.
But all that being said, you mentioned their match at WrestleMania and even the build up to it and stuff with like Knoxville making his appearance at Rumble and shit like that, which kind of fucked me being that we had a friendly gamble going on for Rumble. But that being said, what was your thoughts on this whole Jackass making their appearance into wrestling? You noted that you would love to even just have one of the members make a trip up. They seem to be doing pretty well, if you ask me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you remember. It was probably like the mid 2000s, early 2000s. Steve-O and Chris Pontius did an appearance on a Raw, I believe, where they got beat up by 3-minute warning or Umaga, I believe.
Yes, I do remember that.
And that's kind of like the inspiration, when I wanted to, have Bam come up here, and then, 2 years later or whatever, Johnny Knoxville's getting involved. And no, I thought it was cool. I thought the match was a ton of fun. The only thing I was worried about is if they would have like that type of wacky match or not, or if they're just going to try to do something like straightforward with a couple chairs. But another thing they could have done that I thought would have been fun is if they did like, in Jackass, when like they would take Johnny Knoxville to box Butterbean like in a local, sports shop or whatever like that. Like if they did it out in public, where they just had this match happen in public in different areas, or almost like the grocery store brawl with Booker T and Steve Austin. Like,
that is one of the best things of all time ever.
Like I think
all time ever. Price check on Jackass.
Exactly. And it's with us all these years.
Never forget
how great that was. But no, I think the way they handled it would have been good, or it was good. But I think they could have done some other things too, and they could have went a lot farther with some stunts and whatever. But maybe that's for the future. I know 4.5 is coming out next month. Maybe they'll bring Knoxville back.
Well, since you have done your thing with the promoter thing, before we end up, I figure you'd be a perfect person to get their thoughts on this. So I've been paying attention to the media as I usually do. Like I said, we cover wrestling and all the combat sports. What are your thoughts on all this we hear about? We might see Tyson Fury versus Drew McIntyre in fucking Wembley. That sounds interesting. What do you think?
I'm for it. As a promoter, and like I said, like I do like when those outside attractions come in and bring more eyes to wrestling. I don't think the card should be full of them, but no, Tyson Fury, Drew McIntyre, why not? Just have that one-off spectacle. And what else are they going to do? To put Drew McIntyre with random wrestler he just fought on SmackDown. It's not going to be the same. So I think that's cool here and there when they do that. So I'm here for it. I'll watch it.
Being like I noted more of the MMA side, I pay attention when these celebrities make their appearances and stuff like that, because it's rather noteworthy, because it's not just another wrestling match. It stands out more. Yep. And to me, I love them as long as the celebrity or athlete or whoever takes it serious. As long as they actually put some real intention to it and don't just go in there, haphazardly just kind of flailing around. As long as they at least halfway kind of dig into it, I appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, like even this year at WrestleMania, like if you look at Logan Paul and Pat McAfee, Johnny Knoxville, I feel like
that was great.
It was great. It was good stuff. If they are kind of joking about not taking it serious, it can ruin it. But one other great one that I thought was awesome and really shocked was Snooki all those years ago, when she was like pulling out like backflips and handsprings and stuff. And I was like, see. You just never know.
It's funny you say that, because I just saw Dolph Ziggler's comedy show, and he wasn't as glowing about his running with Snooki at WrestleMania. No, but before I let you get out of here, because I know we're short on time, we got a couple questions that have been getting fired at you in the comments, so I will rifle those off, and then something gives me a sneaking suspicion that you'll have a funny answer for our locker room etiquette standpoint. And shout out to Ashley in the comments, has already got your back against Brutus. If you guys are new here, please make sure you hit that subscribe button while you head out. I've already seen the few of you guys that have already hit that button. Like I said, you never know who will end up in the side of this box. It could be wrestling, it could be MMA, hell, it could even be guys like Chris Cale from Five Finger Death Punch. You never know what you'll see in there. But a couple questions we got for you. So Donald says, what do you think your best show was? He thinks it was last year's doubleheader.
The best show? Oh, man. That's a tough one. There's 15 years worth to choose from. I would say the ones that stick out in my mind were it was 2009 when we brought in Mick Foley. Mick Foley being there, we had for the MCPW titles Jimmy Jacobs versus Tyler Black, who's now Seth Rollins. Just our biggest crowd to date. There was almost 1,000 people there. And it was surreal because I was only running for 2 years at the time. So like that definitely sticks out in my mind. Battleground 2017, we brought in Cody Rhodes. He wrestled against Jake Oman. That was just super cool. Another surreal moment because he literally had a New Japan show the day before and flew from Japan to Kalkaska, Michigan, just to have him when he was, white hot at that time, just had left WWE and was on his run. That was super cool. And I mean, yeah, the last couple of years too, we did a drive-in show during COVID. Like everything shut down. We had to cancel shows in March and May. We came back in July and did a drive-in wrestling show at an airport. And just how different everything was. Like we had really no idea of how things were supposed to work at that time. And we're like, let's just set cars up around a ring at an airport. And that was super cool. So those ones stick out the most.
That sounds like a lot of fucking fun to me.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely for sure. And just this last show we did in April, like I think all around just was kind of the best card we've had, just a couple weeks ago.
I like it. Well, like I said, you guys are definitely on my list to get to. It's just hard because you guys are a little bit up there for us. But like I said, I've been hearing nothing but good things for a while. So when people were calling for us to bring you on to talk about Mr. Chainsaw and all that, I was all over it because, like I said, I've heard nothing but good things. But we've also got in the comments, Joey's got a question for you. He goes, "Okay, in Michigan, is there anybody in Michigan that you want to come to Mr. Chainsaw that hasn't made their way to Mr. Chainsaw yet?"
Well, actually, like one of the biggest names that always eluded MCPW over the past 15 years was Alex Shelley. And he is
big fan of Alex Shelley.
Debuting for us, as weird as that is to say, on May 21st at Battleground against Tommy Vendetta. So Alex Shelley for sure was always on that list to get up here. It just never worked out. And we finally did it. So he would be the one.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, big fan of Alex Shelley. He's definitely kind of one of my white whales from Michigan that I'd love to get on the show because our buddies from the Bumpin' Uglies, go way back with Alex Shelley and them. So like I said, I've been watching those guys. Hell, I think the first time I saw him on TV, man, was like back when Impact used to be on Fox Sports Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
Shit. Like we'd watch it like after school. It was only like an hour long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why I put him with Tommy Vendetta is because when I first got into the indies, he was kind of where Tommy's at now, where you'd see him on every single flyer in the state of Michigan, and then you started seeing him in IWA Mid-South, and then he trickled into Ring of Honor and TNA and New Japan. So like I feel like Tommy's on that verge. He's got the ball right now. So putting them two together, I think is going to be a very, very cool match.
I agree. Last question. That was the one we got from Joey. But yeah, man, I think that's going to be a banger. We're big fans of Tommy Vendetta over here. He also happens to be a past guest of the show, as does Jimmy Jacobs, who you mentioned in the story before. So, like I said, I definitely am looking forward to seeing what's coming out from Mr. Chainsaw. Before I have you plug what's going on with the show and everything one more time. As I mentioned, a sneaking suspicion tells me that you might have a funny answer for this. So we have a segment that we call Locker Room Etiquette, and it's not necessarily what you would think as far as to trying to pry things out or anything like that. It's just biggest pet peeves or any advice you'd have for somebody coming in. Now, we've had everything from wash your balls to keep your baby mama out the locker room to wash your gear. Silas Young said, don't get too comfortable. Ninja Max said, don't be a lazy bastard and get in the ring and train. Let's see, what other ones did we have? We had all, and then obviously the obvious ones. So if you had any of them that are either things that annoy you or like something that you would say is like a piece of advice to somebody younger in the game, what would it be?
My number one piece of advice, learn to ref. Like, learn to be a referee. And the reason I say that is because I mean, I might get 20, 30 messages a week from wrestlers trying to find a spot to wrestle on my shows. You know how many refs have ever messaged me? None. And I say that because if you want to get out and you want to network and, you want to be a wrestler, yeah, we all do. But when you're training, start traveling, referee at these shows. Everybody's always looking for referees. And if you can learn that and you can be good at it, you're going to meet people. You're going to be in locker rooms. You're going to have a paid spot on shows. And then eventually, if you wrestle, it either doesn't work out for you, or down the line when your body's broken down, you can always go right back into a referee and stay in the business. And I've been telling all the young wrestlers that come through, like, I can't get you a spot to wrestle, but if you can referee and you can do it good, there's a paid spot on the show. So that would be my number one piece of advice for anybody that's trying to get into the business. Try to be a wrestler.
I like that.
Learn it.
Well thought out, well articulated. That was a different one than we usually get. So I definitely like that answer. Well,
but I agree with all the other ones you said too.
So. And it's funny, man. And the funniest ones came from like the most unassuming names, like Josh Briggs that's on NXT. Dude, he was going in about the squirt bottle and the wrist tape and the shit like that, man. And that's what's so funny in some of these, because like even like Theory now, oh shit, it's weird calling him Theory, but Theory, when he was on the show, just the things that you remember guys saying when they were on the show and then they're like totally in a different spot now, it makes that segment all the funnier now, because well, the person that was on, Josh Briggs doesn't look anything like he did when we had him on the show. He had a big long hair and all that stuff. Now he's doing his thing up there in NXT, man. So it's always those always bring fun things. But with the show you guys have got coming up, let everybody know where they can check it out, where they can get tickets. And if you've got any more parting words for Brutus Atwell, feel free to let him slide, because we ain't scared.
All right. Our next show, May 21st, it's Battleground. It's we've always called it our biggest show of the year, even though nowadays I try to make every show big. But it's when we bring in some wrestlers you've seen on TV. We have Eri Redbeard, who is Eric Rowan from the Wyatt family. He's going to be wrestling Swamp Bitch, Brutus Atwell. And he's going to be doing a meet and greet as well for the show. Alex Shelley versus Tommy Vendetta is going to be on that show. The card's stacked. We have our MCPW champion Jamal King is going to be there. Top notch Jason Hodge is going to be there. Justin Kyle is going to be on that card. It's going to be a huge night of wrestling. So you can get your tickets right now at mcpwmerch.com. The front row is completely sold out. It's sold out within 24 hours, so you got to get general admission. Those are $20. mcpwmerch.com, or you can get them at the door for $25. I highly advise just save money and get them online. And that's where we're going to be next. It's at the Coliseum in Kalkaska, and it's going to be another banger show. It's going to be a fun night. And then we will after party at the Calho Lounge. And if you've ever been to an MCPW after party, it's the place to be. So that's what we got coming up next. And then in June, we're doing a doubleheader on IWTV, June 25th. So 2 shows in one day. That'll be all streaming live.
Wow.
I like it, dude. Like I said, I enjoyed what I've seen so far, so I'm definitely going to have to check out that doubleheader, man. Well, once we get a little bit closer to that doubleheader, maybe we'll have to bring you back, dude. I appreciate you coming on and appreciate the time. And shout out to Uncle Chase, who, I said it. I gotta teach you how to do a triangle defense. But I definitely enjoyed it. Like I said, Uncle Chase and Donald turned me on to it. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what we see next from Mr. Chainsaw. And hopefully we can bring our asses up to Kalkaska at some point so I can see this shit in person.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Make a weekend out of it like the Hollands do. Come up here. There's a lot to do up here. So that would be in the summer's great. The summer's perfect. The winter, not so much, but make it up in the summer. And I appreciate you guys having me too.
Fucking dude.
Trip out of it.
I was gonna say, why don't we might have to road trip up there or some shit, dude.
Oh, I don't know.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I will let you get out of here. Like I said, anybody who's watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And this also will be available in podcast platform, everywhere you get podcasts and all that good stuff. So I don't know, man. You heard it here. You can check it out on IWTV and all that good stuff. Mr. Chainsaw Pro.
Well, thank you very much, guys.
Before I let you go, Mikey, one quick question I do have to ask with the Mr. Pro Wrestling.
What's up?
The Chainsaw. Where'd you come up with the name? I have to ask it. Before I let you go, I have to ask where the name
Good
comes
question.
It's actually not. It sounds like it should be an interesting story, but it's not. But
from.
my buddy and I, we started booking the local metal concerts and hardcore concerts, and he was a fan of Alkaline Trio. They have a song called Mr. Chainsaw. I'm a huge fan, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like those are my favorite movies of all time, 1 and 2. And we just like, well, why don't we just call it Mr. Chainsaw Productions? So that's when we did the concerts under Mr. Chainsaw Productions. And then we were like, well, if we're doing wrestling, let's call it Mr. Chainsaw Productions Wrestling. Became Mr. Chainsaw Pro Wrestling.
Pro Wrestling.
There you go.
Okay.
But
all right.
that's how it happened. Two 17-year-old kids in 2006. That's our best name we came up with.
It still works to this day.
We're still here 15 years later.
So
I can respect that because the name for this show came off the top of my head out of nowhere. Don't know where it came from, but it works.
Okay, there you go. That's all you need. As long as people call it the right thing, you're good to go.
all right.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I will let you get out of here, brother, man. And for all of you guys who are watching, we've got a lot more to come still. Like I said, the debut of Cory's segment, Cory's Corner, going to talk about some things with MMA. We got to talk about GCW, the old me, since we were down there at Harpo's with J-Bone this weekend. So there's a lot more still to come. Make sure you guys stay tuned. Cool. All right, cool. Give me 1 second. All right. Trying to put the. There you go. All right, Cory. Well, what do you think, man? Mr. Chainsaw Pro Wrestling. I'm definitely looking forward to getting out there at some point to check them out.
Yeah, to his point, man, I cannot wait for this weather to just continue to climb that thermostat up a little bit higher. Because I would love to make a summer trip up north out of it.
Yeah, not this shit we've been getting the last few days, dude. I felt like absolute shit today, dude. Like we've talked about this before. I don't know what it is, but when the weather is crappy like this, it just, bro, it.
Yeah, my old man.
It just fucks me up. I don't even know what else to say.
Yeah, my old man side starts to kick in real quick, man. That gray sky comes out, my naps start kicking up. You know.
Dude, I'm telling you, it makes you want to do nothing but sleep, dude. But you know what didn't want to make us sleep this last weekend, bro? GCW didn't want to make us sleep. So what were your thoughts on GCW, the old me? Donald, I know you were watching. Any of you guys who were watching this, if you checked out GCW, the old me from Harpo's, I'd love to know what you guys think. We were there in the building. Ring the motherfucking bell. But Cory, what was your thoughts on GCW this past weekend?
Another good event. I like what they're doing at Harpo's. I feel as though it's a lot better venue than where they were running out of before. Harpo's definitely provides, other than the fact that I wish that they could get the ring up a little bit better so that the general audience doesn't have to try to climb over top of each other to see. But that's a venue issue, not really a GCW issue. But the actual event itself was entertaining as usual, man. GCW, they have yet to really disappoint. I always have a great time. I mean, you guys go out there more for the wrestling. I go out there for the time, right? And the wrestling did not disappoint, though. It was definitely added to the experience for sure.
I enjoyed it, dude. What did you have any favorite matches on the card?
I really think, honestly, as much as I used to jokingly say, Effie is my favorite from GC, I really think it's starting to be Alex Colon, man. He's
okay. I like this.
He's such a beast, man. He's such a fucking little beast in there, and he puts on these matches, and you can just see by the amount of scar tissue that Mans has that he does nothing not serious. You know what I'm saying? And he goes in there and puts on hell of a show, man. This is what now the third or fourth time I've seen him, and every time's been great. Every time's been he's always been one of the standout guys of the event, and I feel as though this one was just kind of when they gave him the spot with what was the other guy? I can't think of his name at the moment.
Give me a second. Give me a sec. Just keep going. I gotta think for a second.
Yeah, dude with the arm wraps. I can't think of his name at the moment though. But when they both went back and forth on the mic and talked about going for the belt again in the next city and shit, you could just tell Alex seemed like the more real threat, I guess you could say, out of the two. And I guess he would be my standout athlete of the event for sure.
Hell yeah, dude. Because that, God, I'm drawing a blank, but they were talking about he was going to be a 4-time champion of the tournament. He definitely wanted to get his belt back. For me, dude, that scaffold was pretty fucking gnarly. Shout out to the Briscoes and Thrash Justice and Mance Warner, dude. And then, you know, Donald, who I saw Donald posted about it too, man. That dude that gave J-Bone that picture, man, almost got fucking crushed when they fell off the scaffold, dude.
That dude, shout out that dude. All right, you know,
shout out that dude.
There's people that take wrestling serious, and then there's that dude. You know, that dude was in there. If people were going against the people he wanted to win, he was flicking them off, yelling in their face, turning back, yelling towards the ring, holding up his hand-drawn pictures that he did for all of his favorite athletes. He had like a stack of 12 pictures with him, all hand-drawn, laminated so they wouldn't get fucked up by somebody stepping on them. Like, he went above and beyond on this shit so that he could express his fandom on the weekend. And his full denim battle vest, all patched up and spiked out. Shout out that dude.
Shout out that dude. Yeah, it was something else, man. But all I was seeing was pictures of people posting about him and like him getting creamed when they landed and all that kind of stuff. For me, like I said, I think that might have been my favorite match. But then again, the Chris Dickinson match was really good. And hey, dude,
the scaffolding
Too Cold
was
Scorpion.
Wild.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the stuff. I didn't mean to interrupt it. It sounded like
You're
a
good.
wall on mine, but go ahead. Sorry.
You're good. No, you're good. The scaffold was insane, dude. Like watching them fly from the top of that and then go down there through those tables, and you know, getting to meet Too Cold Scorpio was pretty cool
Too
as well.
Cold?
That guy has been Too Cold, dude. He's down. He's around all the time. He's been around for a long time, dude, and he still can go.
Yeah, I just want to say for such an OG of the game, I mean, you and Jordan both were trying to kind of, you know, put me on game for Too Cold, and to see the transformation my man went from in the ring to out of the ring, street clothes, was night and day. You could tell he was just trying to scoot his way up out of there, and we caught him on the way out.
But he came back though. He went to the
Yeah.
piss and came back. So I mean, he
Yeah.
came back. He wasn't trying to run out on nobody.
No, not like that. I'm not saying you could tell.
Yeah.
The wrestlers that are still in there trying to, you know, get their attention and shit, and he does it in the ring. He's such an OG. You don't have to try to garner attention outside. He's worried about his performance inside, you know?
I'm with it, bro. Like I said, I had a damn good time. And you know, I really enjoyed Bussy versus Gringo Loco in ASF, which Gringo Loco, if you guys are a fan of Gringo Loco, you just might want to stay tuned. All the more reason that you need to hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to, whether it's podcast, YouTube, Facebook, all those things. Hit the follows, the likes, the comments, all that good stuff. We also had a bunch of fights this weekend. So before we get into the obvious and all those things, I did say that we are debuting a new segment. This is going to be the beginning of Cory's segment. We're going to call this Cory's Corner. So, Cory, what are the things?
That's
What
about to be
are
my corner?
Yeah, that's Cory's corner. So, like I said, let us know what were the things that you think people need to know about from the weekend that was in MMA.
Well, from the weekend that was, I'm gonna do it in 3-point layout. Number 3, starting at the low end of the stick, is and it not necessarily for any bad reason whatsoever, but Charles Air Jourdain. I had started to break down this fight a little bit last week, but it was kind of one of those could be a banger, could be brushed under, and man, he went out there and just performed, man, against a game Lando Venata who literally was in there until his shorts failed him and got choked out.
Man, he choked that man out of his shorts.
Yeah, literally out of his shorts, and
Like
it
straight
was
up to where his shorts were down around his ankles by the time he was getting choked.
Yeah, and I had started to break it down a little bit on last week's show. I felt like Charles Jourdain was really starting to reach his stride, man. In his last couple fights, he's really showcased that next level. He's starting to really level up his game, and being such a young guy, he's starting to really turn that tide. I feel as though he's becoming a legitimate prospect, at least in this division at 145. So that being my third point. Point number 2, PFL as a whole last week and what we got to look forward to this week come Thursday. If you're not watching PFL, man, you're really missing out. I mean, Jeremy Stephens and Clay Collard genuinely put on a potential fight of the year contender in that main event for him on event 1.
Okay, I got to ask you
to check
something about that. I did watch
Yeah.
that, but my question is, I'm not mad at who won, but I still can't get with that decision being 30-27 against
30-27,
Jeremy.
I know.
There's
I
no
know, I
way
felt
in
the same
hell
way.
Jeremy didn't. There's no
I
way
felt
he
the
didn't
same
win at
way.
least one of those rounds. Because if you
know.
didn't pay attention and didn't see him crack Clay Collard shit a bunch of times
Mhm.
in that fight, I don't know what fight you were watching. Because I mean,
It-
I'm not saying Jeremy won the fight, but there ain't no way in hell that was a 30-27, at least not in my opinion. If you guys watched that show from PFL, please let me know what you thought of that scorecard.
Yeah, I
comments,
couldn't
but I
agree
had to
with
ask.
that aspect of it more. He just seemed to be maybe a little outranged and a little out, paced. His speed just wasn't quite the same as what Clay Collard was able to deliver. And with the length advantage that Clay had as well, it was a tough fight for Jeremy Stephens. But that being said, I do see some real prospect for him going forward in PFL, because I feel as though Clay Collard truly is one of their top 155ers. He fought for their championship last year, being unsuccessful against Roush.
And took out
Mamipo.
Pettis too.
Yeah, took out Pettis, and he's been on a tear. So I feel as though we haven't seen the end of Jeremy Stephens. He put on a great performance, but Clay Collard being the clear winner. That being said, flash to this Thursday, you got the heavyweights, which are always entertaining, and then following that up, you got the featherweights, which have a couple of my favorite PFL athletes in there, being like Chris Wade, Brendan Lotney. What's the other guy named that I can't think of at the moment that won their belt last year? Either way, check out PFL, man. I know a lot of people kind of Kyle, you bring up the point all the time that their viewership numbers just seem to lack like real growth power, for as much money and stuff, and as honestly as good of a product as they have been putting out, and the at least want to bring in star power. It hasn't always been the most successful in their debuts and their seasons and performances and stuff, but they're genuinely trying over there, and when you watch it, you'll be able to notice. So anybody who hasn't checked out PFL, I highly recommend it, coming back this Thursday. And then my last point for Cory's corner, one of these corners, man, Jessica Andrade, one of the love her to death. I had kind of shat on her a little bit last week when I said that there was more deserving main events. I tend to forget that she not only fought for the belt at 125 and put on a fairly decent performance against Valentina. Definitely got beat, but put on a fairly decent performance. Beat Rose and is now back in contendership at 115. I shoot myself in the foot once in a while. You know, what are you going to say when you talk on a mic? Shit happens. That being said, how the hell does one of the shortest fighters in all of the UFC divisions be the first ever UFC fighter to get a standing arm triangle?
I mean, look, dude, we've all established that I got screwed in the gene pool when it came to how tall I was supposed to be, because I was supposed to be 6'2" or 6'5" originally, and clearly that didn't happen. But dude, I'm telling you, like, even though when you're standing, you have a lot more wiggle room, I guess, to try to get out of an arm triangle. I've choked people standing with an arm triangle before. Like,
Yeah.
if you're good at being able to get that squeeze and you can get that tight bite and get your head butted up against that shoulder and really drive that shit through, dude, if you get it in there deep, dude, you know, here's the thing. And that's why, like you heard her say, you know, I wasn't going to use it for the takedown. That forces them to do one of two things, because you have to address it. Otherwise, you're going to get choked out. And if not, you make yourself easier to be taken down. Like I said, it's, I mean, it's a gnarly submission. Any way you hit it, any way you get it. Shout out to her. And I mean, dude, if she's going to go back down there and go for that strawweight belt, dude, it's
what a way to make
her
re-debut in the division, right? To get a submission that no one has ever. To your point, Kyle, you bring it up all the time that the UFC kind of oversaturates themselves with all these cards. You know, we've got 10 plus fights almost every weekend. And so you're talking, you know, throughout the year, there's, you know, 500 plus fights, and they've been doing this schedule now for 5+ years, where it's just been on, you know, and for her to still be the first one to be able to pull it off is just, it truly was amazing to me when I heard that she was the first one. I mean, like Michael Bisping on the Believe You Me podcast had broke it down. Him and Anthony Smith were talking about it, and they both had said, yeah, we do that all the time in the gym, but it's just one of those things that never gets translated into a fight. And to see her actually implement it the way she did, and to basically cinch it up right away, like it was within 5 seconds, it was like, okay, she's about to either tap or go out. And, you know, it was amazing to see, and shout out her. Like I say, I shot myself in the foot. Can't wait to see what's next for Jessica Andrade.
I agree, man. And I mean, now she's really put herself in the driver's seat when you consider she's now the #1 contender in 2 separate weight classes. Like,
it's amazing, isn't it? And she said she said she would be active in both as long as the UFC is willing to keep her ranking in both. So
now that's going to be interesting. I don't know how that's going to go on her body, because that's gnarly, dude.
Yeah,
because that's gnarly to have to go from 2 different weights. Like, it might seem like only a little bit when you're talking about 10 pounds, but when you're talking about getting down to 2 different weight classes like that, that means you're going to have more weight on your frame most times as well, too. Yeah, dude.
And
now,
you could honestly see it when you just look back at her performances when she was going for the belt at 125 compared to where she looked in the cage at 115 this last weekend. She looked like she had dropped a bit of that muscle, not a ton, but just enough to like make that weight cut easier and not have to, sweat weight or anything like that. So she had not necessarily thinned out, but just kind of, lessened the weight training, I guess.
Well, man, I agree with you. Definitely good points to pick out. Let us know in the comments what you guys think of Cory's Corner. Like I said, that's going to be, a segment for Cory to kind of get, get all of his MMA out of him. So, all right. Now that that's out of the way, I got a couple other things that I wanted to ask you about. Obviously, there were a lot of Bellator fights. We saw Cyborg beat somebody again. And then we saw a new champion. What was your thoughts on Liz Carmouche and what happened with that fight? Do you think that it was a bad stoppage, and how much do you think that that's going to take away from Liz Carmouche?
It's honestly the worst type of stoppage, right? Like it really is, right? Like we always, as an MMA community and stuff, shit on these refs and stuff when they let fights go too long and stuff. And when you see somebody's like visually like out of the fight and not going to be able to get back, and then some of the refs just refuse to stop it. This is the complete opposite. And not only was it the complete opposite, this was a title fight where one of the fighters, the one that was holding the belt, came into it undefeated. I know that these refs aren't necessarily supposed to take all this into consideration. They're not supposed to take into consideration how much time's left in the round and all that kind of stuff when they're assessing whether or not to stop these fights. But she was an undefeated fighter. She received roughly two, not even strong. I reference him all the time on the show, the Weasel YouTube channel. If you watch his MMA breakdowns, he does it on light, medium, and strong attacks. And that she didn't even get hit with strong attacks. She got hit with one light and one medium, in my opinion. And for that to be enough for Beltran to stop a title fight with somebody's, for that to be the way that you lose your undefeated record in a fight that she was winning, man, I got a feel for her. It's just a bad look. And then, like we talk about it all the time with Bellator, right? Like they always seem to have some way where something ends up undecisive or just where you have a reason to gripe at the end of the card, and this being a huge example of that, man. I felt so bad for her. I really did. And then to your point, what for Liz Carmouche now? What if she would have been able to go in there and actually continue doing what she was doing in the last 10 seconds of the round?
I mean, she still had her in a bad spot. I feel like that was a little quick to
quick, I feel as though is even an understatement. Like realistically in that type of situation, unless you're like receiving damage, a position is still just a position. You have to be able to do with that position, like if she would have seen it, or if Beltran would have seen her eyes roll back or anything like that, or any type of indicator where she was actually hurt or something like that, then I can understand, but that wasn't even the case. And then for Liz Carmouche to come out and say after the fact, like, no, the stoppage was completely justified. I don't see why anybody would even complain. Like, come on. If the roles were reversed and you got stopped in a title fight by something as minuscule as too light and potentially even a medium elbow, you would be complaining as well. So the fact that you took somebody's undefeated record, it's just bad, man. It's just not a good look for Bellator at all.
Bellator always seems to end up in these situations. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Bellator. I feel like indecisive finishes have been like a lot of the downfall to a lot of the things that they've had, going on with all that stuff. But I mean, they had two good events in Hawaii. I'm hearing that Yancy Medeiros was on with our buddy and past guest of the show, Jimmy Smith, and he was saying that there's a good chance that you could see him back in the cage for Bellator soon. So definitely a good debut for Yancy Medeiros.
Yeah, he looked great in there. He really looked like, to the point I was making with Charles Jourdain earlier, Yancy Medeiros had taken quite a bit of time off in between his last fights. I don't know if that was because of the whole UFC layoff or injury or whatever the case be, but he really looked like he had leveled up in that time. He had really improved his skills. So shout out Yancy Medeiros.
I got no argument there, dude. Let's also talk about what?
Before we do jump off Bellator, I want to run one question by you though. What's left for Cyborg at Bellator? Like, in all honesty, like,
that was something.
This Blenko fight worked out in their favor in the fact that it was more competitive than a lot of people initially thought it would be, and it was genuinely an entertaining fight. But you can't do that a third time when the second fight wasn't even really justified. So what's left?
I think the only thing that's left, because we've already heard both sides mention that they want
that to happen. I think the only thing really left for them to happen is them to do like a co-promotion show or some kind of shit with PFL, or like Misha Tate was saying earlier today. I mean, Cyborg's contract is almost up, so she could just up and leave and go to the PFL. I mean, and you gotta think about it. If she goes over to PFL, wins the $1 million tournament and then gets to fight Kayla, then she gets the big payday, and she's gonna get another big payday for when they fight. So, I mean, I don't know if she just up and leaves Bellator as much as I could see, them doing a cross promotion fight. But really, as far as Cyborg goes, I mean, that's really the only fight that makes any sense unless she were to go back to the UFC, which that doesn't seem to be what Dana White wants to do. So, I mean, for me, that's really the only fight that makes any sense. Although I've seen that she had been doing some stuff with wrestling. If she wants to go try her hand in that, let's see what she does with that. But I don't know.
I think she'd be a beast if she took wrestling serious. I have huge respect for Cyborg and what she's been able to accomplish in her career. She seems to genuinely be a good person outside of the ring, and then to see what she's able to do inside the ring, it's just it's night and day. But that being said, I think with the whole Bellator PFL thing, if she does try to leave Bellator, they have the right to match, just like PFL did with Kayla Harrison. So I think it may end up being I agree. I would love to see her in PFL doing the season format and all that, but I think Bellator might be a little salty and try to match any offer, especially if it's coming
I
from
definitely
the
think
PFL
they'll try to
side.
match it.
Yeah, especially if it's coming from PFL with the way that they're kind of going about everything. Scott Coker had came out in the media saying, you guys are asking for this, co-promotion fight, but my phone hasn't rang yet. So you guys are just out here in the media talking shit, basically. So I could definitely see it going that route, with especially with the fact that Bellator was the promotion that PFL matched Kayla Harrison's offer on. I could definitely see Bellator being like, well, you guys didn't want to give us her, so we'll do the same.
Yeah, man. I mean, really, that's the only fight really that's left for Cyborg outside of the UFC, man. So it's, I don't know, man. I think that fight's got to eventually happen. I don't know. We've gone over pretty much everything. The only other thing I was going to say is to keep hearing all this talk about Stipe versus John Jones. Do you want to see the fight? What do you think about that fight?
Do I want to see the fight? So I'm one of those people that doesn't my head's in the clouds sometimes with some of these athletes, right? Like, I don't necessarily think of John Jones as his last couple performances and stuff. I think of him as his career as a whole, I guess you could say. Same thing with Stipe. And when you talk to somebody like me who watches all these cards and stuff, and you talk about a matchup between genuinely who I consider the best at heavyweight that the UFC has brought in the last 10 years plus, you can argue whether or not he's the best in general or whatever, but in the last 10 years, there's without a doubt that's been Stipe. And then if you look at the light heavyweights, yet again, you could go 15, 20 years, the length of
He might be the greatest
division.
MMA fighter of all time.
Yeah. And then you put John Jones in there, and then you talk about the fact that he's done all this body transformation, making his way to try to be a natural heavyweight, in his words. Natural or juiced, I don't care. I want to fucking see the fight. I am definitely hyped up for the fight. Rumors came out initially that it was supposed to be being made for International Fight Week, and now that those rumors are being pushed back, I guess, till September. So I just hope it really happens. I really genuinely would love to see the fight, but does it happen? I don't know. I think it will, but I don't know.
I mean, I think it's the way to go. Plus, at least if John Jones is going to get a heavyweight title shot, if he beats Stipe, nobody can say that he shouldn't get a title shot. So I think I'm interested to see the fight. I want to see how it plays out. I got to see how Thursday is going to play out. We got a show that's coming to you this Thursday at 9 p.m. I still got to lock in who those guests might be, but I want to shout out tonight's guest. Mikey Zeroe, and all the new people that were coming in, all the new people that subscribe on YouTube and all that stuff from that. If you guys are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel so you can see what's coming from us next. Like I said, Gringo Loco in the pipeline. You've got hopefully another DMAC Darren McCarty appearance soon. Like I say, there's a lot of good stuff to come. See, Kathy's already saying she enjoyed the interview with Mikey. Shout out to Mikey. Shout out to Mr. Chainsaw Pro Wrestling. And shout out to J-Bone. Hope you get feeling better, homie. With that being said, dude, I think we've pretty much covered everything. So until next time and in the in-between time and all that good stuff, peace.